pretty clear. If anyone thought that this government was a friend of business, I think now they know that's absolutely not true. Because if business wasn't worried, they certainly will be now. I mean, just think about all the things over the last few months with immigration, overseas investment, employment laws. But now what you're seeing just in the last 2 or 3 days, the oil and gas stuff, and now Shane Jones bullying big listed companies. It's something that I think Jacinda Ardern has to deal with. She has to bring them into line. But I think sadly what we're seeing on these things is a situation where rather than doing that, this is a government that's prepared to be economic vandals for the sake of their own political fortunes and capital.
It's all just hot air though, isn't it? He doesn't actually have any bully power when it comes to New Zealand.
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, ultimately you've got to say Shane Jones has said these things as a minister, inside cabinet, an integral part of the government. And, you know, his colleague is the Minister for SOEs, Winston Peters, who's in charge of Air New Zealand ostensibly. And the Prime Minister, of course, the buck ultimately stops with her. So I think she needs to call him to account on these issues. And look, what I'd also say to you, if Shane Jones is so much the enemy, so much the foe of Air New Zealand, why has he accepted corporate hospitality for Air New Zealand to be at the Obama dinner?
This is the national carrier though. Should it just be run as a for-profit business, or should it have some kind of social benefit as well?
Oh look, I think these are legitimate issues. I've raised them with Air New Zealand when I've been a minister. Nathan Guy and my party is raising them around Kapiti and what is happening there. But it's how you deal with them. And what we've got here is bullying, is personal attacks, is the calling for resignations of the board, the chair and the chief executive, arguably, depending how you read that, of a big listed company. I go back to it. This isn't isolated, is not isolated behaviour. You've also got the, I think, pretty cavalier comments out on the forecourt in relation to oil and gas, thousands of jobs, billions of dollars. You've got an electricity review going on, which means that the electricity companies won't be spending an extra dollar on doing new generation or anything until that's over. You've had talk previously about nationalisation in relation to ports by, I think, the Right Honourable Winston Peters. So it all adds up, and I come back to it. If business wasn't worried, they will be now, and don't think this stuff doesn't have an effect on how they behave, on business confidence, and ultimately on jobs, on employment, and New Zealanders' lifestyles.
In New Zealand, opened up a seat.
Pull out of the region.
Does it really look like the investors are really very worried? I mean, it's going fine today in the market.
Well, you know, maybe they are cynical about it. Maybe they don't see it as all that serious. But, you know, I think going by what Shane Jones is saying, he sees it as serious. He is a minister inside cabinet with collective responsibility. I think Jacinda Ardern needs to call him to account.
Are you receiving corporate hospitality tonight? Are you paying?
Yeah, no, I'm going tomorrow night to the Obama dinner. I think it's a great privilege. I'm very excited to be one of the people who will see, you know, one of the very few American presidents on New Zealand soil, and a very charismatic one at that. But I'm not out there slagging off Air New Zealand. So I come back to it. Here's Shane Jones, who supposedly hates Air New Zealand, hates their board, but he's prepared to take their corporate hospitality and go to the Obama dinner on them.
How much do you reckon an invite to that is worth?
I don't know.
Have you seen those GDP figures?
The regional GDP figures very quickly. I mean, I think what that shows is under national, as they are all figures under national, the regions were doing incredibly well. They literally all have been growing. And so I suppose the question you have to ask is, well, given that, if it don't break, what is Shane Jones trying to fix? It's a pretty strange approach from Shane Jones to be out there slagging off big corporates, to be talking down oil and gas, not just him, of course, other members of the government, when actually they're booming and they say they want to keep that sort of approach. Well, as I say, I reckon this week shows they're definitely not the friend of business, this government.
Just to clarify, you are going to the Obama dinner?
Correct.
And why do you think it's okay for you to go but not Shane Jones?
I'm not slagging off Air New Zealand.